After a 2-year wait, we finally got Halloween Kills released in cinemas and on demand, so let's talk about it. Hey there guys, and welcome back to Dino Review. So as I said, Halloween Kills was finally released last weekend. Now I went to see this one in the cinema, and coming out of the movie, I gotta say, I was slightly disappointed with the film. I wasn't sure what I actually thought about it, and honestly I was more confused than any other Halloween film I've seen up until this point. So I kind of wanted to give things just a couple of days to gather my thoughts, let the movie really sink in, and maybe give it a rewatch. And I did just that. I actually watched the movie again 2 nights ago, and I gotta say now I absolutely love the movie. A lot of the issues I actually had in the cinema weren't really there on my second watch. I had quite a lot of negatives when I first did give it that watch, but now a lot of them have actually turned into positives. But guys, I'm going to go through my review and breakdown of a lot of points in the movie, what I liked, what I didn't like. I still do definitely have negatives, but the positives definitely outweigh them. But we're going to kick things off with the positives of the movie, and my first positive is the cinematography. Honestly, the cinematography in this one was a joy to watch, and I actually think it was the closest to the original movie or even Halloween 2. Dean Cundey's cinematography was definitely on screen. You could tell there was inspiration there for sure, and the 1978 flashback scene was absolutely outstanding. Just the little details they caught in that scene going back to the first movie. That scene in particular, that whole setup, the first 10-15 minutes at the start of the film, you could pretty much take that whole scene and put it into the original movie and you probably wouldn't be able to tell too much of the difference. Just the different colours and lighting that they brought on screen really captured the tone of that first movie. We also had the Myers house beautifully recreated pretty much as a replica of that original house. We had the return of Dr. Loomis for a brief glimpse. There was just so much detail that went into this movie to really make it a direct continuation for the fans. And that kind of goes for the rest of the movie too. Certain kills in the movie, how they were portrayed on screen, really brought me back to the original film. And as well as that, how you see certain characters, their viewpoint of Michael in particular, how they see him, is a lot different than what we've gotten over the last few years or the last few decades with Michael Myers, where he is this kind of rampaging, hulking monster. The movie instead took its time with him quite a lot, and they actually showed that through great camera work. And the entire movie had that. There's something about this movie that did just bring me back to the early 80s in particular, those slasher films we used to get. There was just something different with this horror in particular, even compared to Halloween 2018. I thought Halloween 2018 had a fresher, cleaner look compared to this one. Now this one is meant to be gritty and messier for sure, but the directing in particular and just the use of lighting in certain parts, again just to show the shape, maybe roaming the streets of Haddonfield, was done extremely well. Another positive was the connections to the original movie but also to Halloween 2018. We have a bucket load of characters in this movie and a lot of them are returning characters. In particular, quite a lot of them are from the original movie. Now I am going to do a bit of a breakdown of each character. I'm going to start off with Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace. For me, Tommy Doyle, when I saw it in the cinemas, was probably the most disappointing character in the movie. I absolutely hated his portrayal. I thought Anthony Michael Hall was a bit too over the top in his performance. It came across as quite campy. At the same time, I thought Kyle Richards as Lindsay Wallace did a great job. For what she was given, she hasn't acted in quite some time and she did a really good job. But going back to Tommy Doyle, he was the character who, as I said, I was just disappointed with. I just thought his performance was a little too out there. But again, rewatching the movie, he's actually become one of my favourite characters in the film. One of the reasons for that is because he reminded me so much of Laurie Strode in the 2018 version. When I was watching this movie in cinemas, I didn't really get where all of his rage was coming from. I didn't really understand why he was so dramatic in wanting to take Michael down. But having a few days to just digest the movie and really think about it, he did again remind me of Laurie. In the 2018 film, she does show up in Karen's house at one point and she's giving out that she doesn't have security systems in place. She is a little bit deranged, she's a bit out there again. And there's a scene in Kills where Tommy goes to visit Laurie in the hospital and he pretty much acts the exact same way. All he wants to do is take down Michael and stop his carnage from continuing. And that made sense to me. As the movie goes on, they talk quite a lot about Michael infecting the town and really kind of causing a lot of this mayhem because of the fear of the residents of Haddonfield. And that's exactly what Tommy was doing. He was pretty much causing a lot of the crap that was happening, and he even got an innocent man murdered. So I think the portrayal of Tommy makes sense. When I went back and watched it again, knowing this time around who his character is, what his character is all about, it did fit his character. I think when I went in first looking at it, I had an idea of who Tommy Doyle should be. I kind of even associated him to Paul Rudd's version in Halloween 6. Instead, Tommy Doyle in this is a much different character. He's a damaged character just like Laurie. As for Sheriff Brackett and Nurse Marion, it's kind of the same thing. Again, there were certain scenes I maybe wanted to see play out. I wanted Sheriff Brackett to really get his revenge for Annie in the original movie. I wanted Nurse Marion to have a little bit more to do. But this wasn't my movie. Going into it, when I first watched it, again, I was a bit disappointed because it didn't work out certain ways. But rewatching it again, knowing where Sheriff Brackett was, knowing where Nurse Marion was in her life, again, it just made more sense. I really enjoyed every scene that both those characters were in, and I did like how they actually fit into the story. It was great to see Laurie Strode's daughter and granddaughter working with Sheriff Brackett, Nurse Marion, Tommy and Lindsay. Honestly, for me, it felt like a natural continuation of the original movie. Two other characters I really enjoyed were Lonnie and Cameron. Again, a lot of people watching Halloween 2018, I think they were maybe pissed off that Cameron didn't die, that he got to live through the night, but I am now happy he's in Kills. I think having him and the relationship he has with his father was just a nice way to humanize the character more than anything else. I enjoyed pretty much every scene he was in, and my opinion of the character has now changed. As for Lonnie, I thought the actor who plays him, I know he's in Hill House and he was in Midnight Mass, he did a terrific job again with the role he was given, and he kind of blended into the original cast really well. I also loved that the movie mirrored quite a lot, so when Lonnie is going to the Myers house, it does again just harken back to the original movie where Lonnie was terrified of entering the Myers house as a kid. I also liked that they actually sidelined Laurie and Hawkins throughout the movie. I thought it was great to have those two characters pretty much just be in the same room talking about Michael, because they're really the only ones who knew him up until that point, who really knew what he was capable of and how dangerous he was. Laurie Strode, I also liked how they actually played with the idea finally of if Michael is actually after her or not. Going back to what I said about Tommy Doyle, he's pretty much a very broken, damaged character in the movie, as is Laurie. And you can kind of see in the scenes between Karen and Laurie, all she wants to do is protect her mother. When Tommy enters the scene, Laurie is given a reason to get up out of bed and really go hunting for Michael. So they are not great for each other in a way, but it's because of the tragic events that happened in that first movie. Karen and Alison also had a really interesting dynamic where you can kind of see Karen has grown up hearing about Michael Myers her entire life, constantly being barraged that she needs to prepare for his return, only for it to finally happen this Halloween. And she has taken him on. She's seen exactly what her mother was talking about, and now all she wants to do is protect her family. Whereas Alison has pretty much a different idea. She didn't grow up hearing the stories about Michael Myers. She wasn't really preparing for him. Instead, she saw what he could do with fresh eyes, and it's her first time really experiencing the shape. So her response to the events is a lot fresher than Karen's. Instead of hiding away and protecting everyone she loves, she wants to go out and take Michael on. She wants to be a rebel. And clearly she is the youngest person in that family, so she's not as level-headed. You know, she has a mission and she wants to take Michael out and get revenge for her parent. But you can pretty much tell almost every character in the movie is actually fueled by rage. Every character has been affected by Michael, whether it be 1978 or that night in particular. The other big positive of the movie is of course Michael Myers. A lot of people said they didn't really know the plot of the movie or who the main character was, but I think it's very clear rewatching it again, Michael Myers is the main character in this movie. This is pretty much Michael's movie, and I loved how again James Duchovny portrayed a shape in this one. He has that classic look, he has that classic stance and walk that Michael had in the original movie, but he also gives off a very creepy, dark persona that the Shape is known for. Not Michael Myers, but the Shape in particular from the first film. I also like the playfulness that Michael has in this one with the different victims he kills throughout the night. I think a lot of people again have said that Michael wouldn't position bodies in a certain way, but going back to the 78 movie again, that's pretty much what he did. I think the sequels actually over time forgot that about the character, that he has that creepy sense to him where he does actually play with the bodies. He positioned Linda in the original movie in a cupboard. He actually laid Bob up in a way where he could fall out and terrify Laurie, and he took Annie's body, lay it on a bed with a tombstone, just to give again that kind of eerie sense that he's enjoying the killings and he's enjoying creeping people out. It's the exact same with this one, the couple who live in Myers' house. The way he positioned their bodies and playing that song, there is something quite disturbing about that I think we just forgot about Michael over the years. And just to pivot off that slightly, I think a lot of people have actually said as well, the mentally ill patient storyline, they weren't a fan of it. I particularly love that story because one of the things that has always fascinated me about the Halloween series, and again in particular the first movie, is that Michael Myers is known as this mental patient who escapes an asylum and goes on a killing spree. But Dr. Loomis says throughout that movie that he's more than that. He is the Shape, he's the boogeyman, he's not entirely human, that he is just slightly supernatural. And I think the movie did a great job at actually differentiating that. With the changing times at the moment, I don't think it's the best thing to say Michael Myers is an escaped mental patient, so I actually liked how they differentiated between what Michael was and a mentally ill person. I actually thought it was great to have that in the movie. And again, honestly, watching it back, it was about a 15-minute part of the movie, and it doesn't really happen until about an hour in. I think fans of the original movie, in particular, if you listen to Loomis and you listen to what he's saying, he is saying that right from the get-go. As well as that, he pretty much tells Sheriff Brackett in that first movie that if Michael really gets his way that night back in 78, the entire town will be a bloodbath. And again, that's what we get in Halloween Kills. So just going back to it being really a very simple connective story to that first movie, I actually think they pulled that off really well. Another positive is the comedy in the movie. I enjoyed the comedy in this one. I actually thought it was done really well. I think in the 2018 one there were certain lines, particularly pieces of dialogue, that just didn't hit and they came across as quite corny, but overall I thought the comedy worked well. The couple in particular in the Myers house, Big John and Little John, were a standout in the film, and you get that with the comedy. I think a lot of the side characters who are looking after the Myers house or are providing plot details for Lindsay Wallace or Tommy Doyle, like the kids with the silver shamrock masks, a lot of their stuff is comedy. It's just comedic moments to keep the movie going. And then you have the more serious stuff with Laurie and Tommy and so on. So I think it was actually a great balancing act, and it kept you invested in different characters. At the same time, we had kills aplenty throughout the movie, so there was always something going on. And that's my last positive with the movie, is the plot. A lot of people will say the movie is quite messy and you don't know who the main character is. As I said, Michael Myers is the main character in this movie, but I also enjoyed that there was so many different storylines going on, and they actually do all pretty much come together at the end of the movie. The Myers house also being such a central part of the movie made sense in the end to me. When I watched it in the cinemas again, I loved having the Myers house in it, but I couldn't really tell where they were going with that story, with the whole window situation. Overall though, I thought they did a great job of connecting this story to 2018, but in particular the original film. I honestly think, as for a sequel and for just a natural progression of where a story would go, a story that really wants to explore Michael, but not in a way that they're just adding something new. Instead, they are taking something from the past, the Myers house and the murder of Judith Myers, to give us something new. So I think they did a great job with all of those. They are my positives, but as I said, I do still have some negatives. My first negative is the dialogue at times. Now again, after rewatching this one, my opinion on the dialogue has again changed. It actually wasn't as bad as I remember. Again, Tommy Doyle, everything he said was fine. I didn't actually think he was over dramatic the second time I watched it. I knew where he was coming from and I knew the character that he had turned into. Now, Kyle Richards, as I said, although she did a great job in the movie, one or two lines didn't hit. There's a part of the movie where Nurse Marion shouts out, "Evil must die tonight," even before the mob have chanted it or come up with that line. So little issues like that I definitely had with the movie, but the dialogue honestly was good. It wasn't an issue for me the second time watching. The other negative I had with the movie was the mob storyline. I didn't really enjoy. I don't think anyone particularly loved that storyline in the movie, and I actually wondered did Jamie Lee Curtis push that a little bit more than David Gordon Green was going to give to it. I think it just does engulf the movie and it takes it over at times a bit too much. Now again, watching this one back, I was surprised that the mob story didn't actually come into place until over an hour into the movie. So I actually forgot that completely. I think from watching so many trailers, from watching promos about the movie, I did kind of build up this idea that that's what the entire movie was about, because that was the angle that they were promoting it with too. But if you actually sit down and rewatch it again, the mob storyline, although it's there and it's interwoven into the plot for sure, it isn't a big thing until an hour into the film. And again, I like the whole mentally ill patient storyline. I thought it was very clever. So the mob storyline doesn't really get a bit too much until it starts to get ridiculous, maybe in the hospital. The ending of the movie where they corner Michael I thought was interesting, because with the original movie you do see Michael as the boogeyman, but you also see him as a person at times. And I think when the mob start taking him down, when they start beating him to a pulp on the ground, that old Myers once again does come back. Now my last negative is the last 5 minutes of the film, particularly what happens to Karen Strode and how the events of that shape up. I didn't enjoy the last 5 minutes. It kind of felt like a tacked on ending that, you know, you should come back next year because the movie's going to continue. It reminded me of the ending of A Nightmare on Elm Street. I just thought it was quite cheap and it was very quick. Now maybe when I watch it back again I'll appreciate more, but there was just a lot of plot holes with it that didn't really make sense. How Myers got back into the house while everyone was pretty much sitting right next to the stairs. I wasn't a fan of it. I thought it was quite weak, but again, it's a small thing, and the good thing with this movie, it is a middle chapter in a trilogy, so maybe when Halloween Ends comes out, it will actually improve Kill's ending. All in all though, my negatives aren't huge, and as I said, I had a lot more negatives when I first watched the film. This movie was sitting maybe second last in the series for me when I came out of the cinemas, but now it's easily one of my top favourites in the Halloween series. But guys, let me know, what did you think of Halloween Kills? Were you a fan of it? And are you excited to see where they go with Halloween Ends? How they kind of wrap up the storyline and what it means about the window in particular in the Myers house? Or did you hate the movie? Did it completely ruin this particular trilogy for you? As always guys, remember you can let me know in the comments, and if you like this video, if you like Halloween content, check out any of the other videos down below, and I will see you guys in the next one.